Imagine waking up each day unshaken by the world's chaos, reclaiming your peace from the grip of endless emotional turmoil. In Stop Letting Everything Affect You by Chidiac, discover how to dismantle the mental loops of overthinking and reactivity that trap you in cycles of anxiety and self-doubt. Explore the illusion of control and the power of setting boundaries without guilt, learning to detach from toxic and triggering patterns and manipulation while embracing authentic growth. Uncover the art of forgiveness beyond cliches, shifting from victimhood to empowerment, and finding true inner peace amid life's inevitable storms. This guide equips you to walk away from what no longer serves you, emerging stronger and more centered in your journey toward freedom. Chapter 1. The Root of the Problem. Why you feel everything so deeply. Have you ever wondered why certain things seem to hit you harder than they do other people? A casual comment from a friend, a dismissive tone in a text, a small setback at work, or even a stranger's rude glance. Why do these moments linger in your mind for hours, days, or sometimes longer? Why do your emotions surge so intensely that they take over your entire day, leaving you drained, replaying scenarios, and questioning yourself? You're not alone in this, and more importantly, you're not broken or overly dramatic. What you're experiencing is real, and it has roots that go deeper than just being sensitive. For many of us, life isn't something we simply pass through. We absorb it. Every interaction, every word, every shift in energy around us registers on a level that feels almost physical. It's like your emotional system is dialed up to maximum volume while others seem to operate on a lower setting. This heightened sensitivity often begins early. Maybe you grew up in an environment where you had to read the room constantly, to anticipate moods, avoid conflict, or keep the peace. Perhaps you were the child who felt responsible for everyone's feelings, or you learned that staying alert and attuned was a way to stay safe. Over time, this pattern wired your nervous system to stay on high alert. Your brain became skilled at detecting potential threats. Not just physical ones, but emotional and social ones too. A slight rejection, a hint of disapproval, or an uncertain outcome triggers the same stress response as a real danger. This isn't weakness, it's a survival adaptation that once served you. But now, in a world full of constant stimulation, notifications, opinions, and expectations, that same mechanism keeps firing when it doesn't need to. Minor events feel catastrophic because your system is primed to treat them as significant. You feel everything deeply because your internal radar is extraordinarily sensitive. It's scanning for safety, belonging, and worth in every moment. The problem compounds when you start judging yourself for it. You think, why can't I just let it go like everyone else? Or, normal people don't get this upset. That self-criticism adds another layer of pain, turning a fleeting feeling into a spiral of shame and overthinking. You end up fighting your own emotions instead of understanding them, which only makes them louder. Here's the key insight. Feeling things deeply is not the issue. It's what you do with those feelings that determines whether they control you or you control them. Highly sensitive people often have richer inner worlds, greater empathy, and deeper connections when they learn to channel that intensity productively. But without tools to regulate it, that same depth becomes exhausting and self-sabotaging. Recognize this pattern in yourself without judgment. Notice how quickly a small trigger can escalate. One thought leads to another, emotions build, your body tenses, and suddenly you're in full emotional chaos. That's not a flaw in your character. It's a learned and reinforced response loop. The good news? Because it's learned, it can be unlearned. The root isn't that you're too much. It's that you've been operating without boundaries around your energy and without awareness of how your mind amplifies threats. As we move through this book, you'll see that reclaiming your peace starts right here, by understanding why you feel everything so deeply, and then choosing not to let that depth run your life unchecked. You deserve to feel without being overwhelmed. You deserve to care without carrying everyone's weight. And most of all, you deserve a steady inner calm that no external storm can shake. Let's keep going. You're already taking the first step by being willing to look at this honestly. Chapter 2. The problem isn't just people, it's everything. You've probably told yourself at some point, if only certain people would stop treating me this way, I'd finally be okay. You've blamed exes, family members, friends, bosses, even random strangers online. And while those specific interactions can hurt deeply, here's the uncomfortable truth most people avoid facing. It's not really about them. It's about everything. The moment you realize this, something shifts. Because once you see that the problem is much bigger than any one person, you stop waiting for others to change so you can finally feel peaceful. You start looking at the real source, your own emotional permeability. Right now, your nervous system is like an open window in a storm. Every gust, every notification, every delayed reply, every unfinished task, every news headline, every comparison on social media, every memory that pops up uninvited, gets inside and rattles everything. People are just one type of wind, but the window stays open for all of it. Think about a typical day. You wake up already carrying yesterday's unfinished argument in your chest. A work email lands with slightly critical wording, arrow instant tightness in your stomach. You scroll and see someone you know living a life that looks better, arrow sudden wave of inadequacy. Your partner is quiet for 10 minutes, arrow mind races to worst-case scenarios. Traffic is slow, implies anger bubbles, even though you're not late. A family member makes one offhand remark, then the rest of the evening is colored by it. You lie in bed replaying a conversation from 3 weeks ago. Arrow sleep becomes impossible. Notice something. None of these moments require another person to be actively attacking you. Most of them aren't even about rejection or conflict, yet they still land like emotional punches. Why? Because your internal boundary between what happens and how I feel is extremely thin, almost non-existent. You've trained yourself, usually unintentionally over years, to treat every input as personally significant. Your mind and body respond as if every signal is a threat to your worth, safety, or belonging. This is why fixing one relationship or cutting off one toxic person rarely brings lasting relief. You remove one trigger, and 10 new ones appear from completely different directions. A co-worker's tone, a delayed bus, your own reflection in the mirror, the silence after sending a message, the number on the scale, a memory, a future worry. The source keeps changing, but the reaction stays the same. Here's what that means. You're not overreacting to people, you're overreacting to life. And life is loud, unpredictable, full of tiny micro-movements that most people filter out automatically. But when your filter is broken or missing, everything gets through. That's exhausting. It's also why you feel like you're always on, always bracing, always one small thing away from tipping over. The good news is that this is not a permanent defect in your personality. It's a pattern of attention and interpretation. Your attention is currently magnetized to potential danger, disapproval, or loss. Your interpretation automatically assigns deep personal meaning to almost everything. Both of those can be retrained. Start noticing, not judging, the sheer volume of inputs that currently affect your emotional state. Just observe how many non-human things steal your peace in a single day. The weather, traffic, your phone battery, a stranger's facial expression, a song lyric, an unfinished chore, someone else's success, a delay that has nothing to do with you. When you see how broad the net is, you stop believing that fixing one person or one situation will solve everything. You begin to understand that real freedom comes from changing the net itself, making it smaller, stronger, more selective. You don't need the world to stop being chaotic. You need to stop letting chaos decide how you feel. That shift begins the moment you stop asking, "Why do they keep hurting me?" and start asking, "Why am I still letting so much in?" You're allowed to close the window sometimes. Not because the storm is wrong, but because your peace matters more than proving you can handle every gust. We'll explore exactly how to do that in the coming chapters. For now, just notice, it's not them, it's everything, and that realization is the beginning of taking your power back. Chapter 3. The Thought Prison. How your mind creates mental loops. Imagine this. Something small happens. A message stays on read. A tone in someone's voice feels off. A plan gets cancelled last minute. In the space of just a few seconds, your mind begins to build something far bigger than what actually occurred. It starts innocently enough with the event itself. Then comes the question, what does this mean? Almost instantly, our brain supplies an answer, and it's rarely neutral. They're upset with you. They don't care anymore. You must have said something wrong. You always ruin things. This is proof you're too much, or not enough, or destined to be left behind. Before you realize it, you're no longer sitting with what happened. You're deep inside a completely different reality. One your own thoughts created in under a minute. That is the thought prison. A rapid, automatic chain of interpretations, assumptions, predictions, and self-attacks that transforms a neutral or mildly uncomfortable moment into full emotional crisis. The loop feels so convincing because it moves fast and it moves quietly. It doesn't announce itself as fiction. It arrives dressed as truth, as urgency, as the only logical conclusion. You don't even notice you're the one writing the script. It feels like you're simply observing reality, when in truth you're locked inside a story your mind is aggressively narrating. Here's how it usually unfolds. A trigger arrives. Something said, something not said, a look, a silence, even a random memory or a flutter of anxiety in your chest. Your mind leaps to the most threatening interpretation possible. Rejection, failure, judgment, abandonment. That interpretation floods you with emotion, anxiety, shame, anger, sadness, and because the feeling is so strong, it must be real. Your body joins in, heart races, shoulders tighten, stomach knots. Now you have physical evidence that the story is true. So you do what any reasonable person would do when they believe there's a real problem. You think harder. You replay the moment. You analyze every word. You imagine what you should have said. You predict how it will end. You search for past examples that prove the fear is justified. You try to solve it, fix it, prepare for it. Every new thought adds fuel. The discomfort grows, the thinking intensifies, the loop tightens. The irony is brutal. The very activity you're using to escape the pain, thinking, is what keeps you trapped in it. Your mind is trying to protect you by figuring everything out, but the real threat is not the original trigger. It's the endless mental rehearsal of worst-case scenarios. These loops are rarely random. They follow well-worn scripts your mind has practiced for years. If someone pulls away, it means I'm not enough. If I'm not perfect, I'll be replaced. If things go wrong, it's always my fault. If I don't fix this right now, everything will fall apart. Because the scripts are old and familiar, they feel like wisdom. They feel like pattern recognition. But they're not wisdom, they're reflexes, and reflexes happen before reason has time to step in. The longer you stay inside the loop, the more exhausted you become. Your energy pours into conversations that exist only in your head. Your attention gets hijacked so completely that you can't be where you actually are. Your nervous system remains on high alert, waiting for the next imagined disaster. Over time, you start to believe this is just who you are, an anxious, overthinking person who can't switch off. But that's not your identity. That's what happens when you allow unchecked mental loops to run the show without interruption. Breaking free doesn't mean you stop having thoughts. Thoughts will always arise. What changes is how much authority you give them. You begin to see that not every thought deserves to be followed, believed, or fed. Some thoughts are simply noise, old conditioning, habitual fear, temporary fiction, not facts about reality. The moment you can pause and recognize I'm in the loop again is the moment the prison door cracks open. You don't have to tear it down in one dramatic effort. You just have to stop walking deeper inside. You can choose to step back, take a breath, and ask, is this thought helping me or hurting me? Is this story expanding right now, or is it shrinking me? That small act of noticing is where the real shift begins. Not in forcing the thoughts to stop, but in refusing to go with them when they try to drag you down the same familiar corridor. You are not your racing mind. You are the one who can watch it race and decide whether to run after it or let it pass. The thought prison only has as much power as the attention you give it. Withdraw that attention, even for a few seconds at a time, and the walls start to lose their grip. We'll build on this in the chapters ahead. For now, simply start noticing when you're inside the loop. That awareness alone is the beginning of your freedom. Chapter 4. The Bigger Perspective. You've spent so much time zoomed in on the pain that the rest of your life has started to disappear from view. The sharp comment that landed this morning, the message that hasn't been answered, the mistake you replay at 3 a.m. In those moments, they feel enormous, final, defining. They feel like the entire story, but they're not. They're just one sentence, one scene, one breath in a lifetime that is so much longer and wider than the hurt currently filling your chest. When you're hurting, your attention collapses inward. The world shrinks to the size of the wound. Everything else, your strengths, your progress, the people who do show up for you, the small wins you've already collected, the future that hasn't been written yet, gets pushed out of frame. That narrow focus is what makes pain feel permanent. It tricks you into believing this feeling is the whole truth about who you are and what your life will always be. The bigger perspective is the gentle act of stepping back far enough to see that it isn't. Most of the things that ruin your day right now will barely register in a year. The person whose opinion stings today will become someone you hardly remember. The embarrassment that feels unbearable will fade into a story you tell with a shrug. Even the anxiety that seems endless will pass once it stops being fed fresh attention. Time has a way of putting things back into proportion, but you don't have to wait for time to do it for you. You can choose to lift your gaze now. This wider view doesn't erase the hurt. It simply refuses to let the hurt become the only lens you look through. You can feel the disappointment and still know it doesn't define your worth. You can feel rejected and still trust that your value was never in someone else's hands. You can feel anxious about tomorrow and still remember that you've survived every difficult tomorrow that has come before. Here's what becomes visible when you hold the bigger picture. Your life is not measured by how perfectly people treat you in any single moment. It's measured by how steadily you choose to treat yourself across all moments. The approval you're desperate for from that one person is only one opinion among thousands, and the loudest, most consistent vote is the one you cast every day with your own thoughts and actions. Every rejection you've ever feared has already happened in small ways, and yet you're still here. Still capable of love. Still capable of joy. Still capable of beginning again. The future you're catastrophizing hasn't arrived. When it does, you will meet it with the same resilience you've used to get through every hard day so far, even the ones you thought would break you. Practicing this wider lens isn't about bypassing emotion or pretending nothing matters. It's about refusing to let a passing cloud convince you the sky is permanently dark. You learn to hold two things at once. Yes, this hurts right now, and no, this is not the final word on my life. That small expansion of perspective creates space. The emotion still arrives, but it no longer swallows the entire day. You stop reacting from panic and start responding from presence. You stop letting temporary feelings rent permanent space in your mind and heart. Over time, life stops feeling like an endless series of threats you have to defend against. It starts feeling like a series of moments. Some painful, some beautiful, most quietly ordinary. And none of them get to decide who you are or how much peace you're allowed to keep. That is freedom, not the absence of pain, but the refusal to let pain set the scale of your world. Whenever the close-up view starts to suffocate you, pause. Take one conscious breath. Ask yourself, if I zoomed out right now, what would I see? How much space does this really take up in the full picture of my life? Return to that question as often as you need. Each time you do, the small things lose a little more power. Each time you do, you reclaim a little more of yourself. You're so much larger than whatever is hurting you in this moment. The sooner you start living from that truth, the lighter everything begins to feel. Chapter 5. The Illusion of Control. You've probably spent years believing that if you could just get enough things right, if you could predict what people would do, say the perfect thing, avoid every mistake, keep everyone happy, stay one step ahead, then finally you would feel safe. Calm, in control. So you plan, you prepare, you rehearse conversations in your head. You over-explain yourself so no one can misunderstand you. You try to manage other people's moods, their perceptions, their reactions. You scroll back through texts to analyze tone. You say yes when you want to say no just to keep the peace. You apologize before anyone has even accused you of anything. You stay alert, always scanning for what could go wrong, so you can stop it before it happens. You do all of this because somewhere deep inside, a quiet voice insists, "If I don't control this, it will hurt me." That belief is the illusion of control. And it's one of the most exhausting lies your mind has ever told you. The truth is, you are never in control of most of the things you've been trying so desperately to manage. You can't control what someone else thinks of you. You can't control whether they reply, whether they stay, whether they change their mind. You can't control the weather, the traffic, the economy, someone's bad day, or the way a stranger interprets your words. You can influence some outcomes with effort and intention, but influence is not the same as control. Most of life simply happens, outside your grip, outside your script. Yet every time something slips out of your hands, the panic rises. I should have seen this coming. I should have said something different. I should have done more. That panic isn't really about the event itself. It's about the sudden confrontation with how little control you actually have. And that confrontation feels like danger because your nervous system still equates uncertainty with threat. So you double down. You tighten your grip even harder. You try to micromanage the uncontrollable. And the tighter you squeeze, the more life slips through your fingers. The more exhausted you become. The more you start to resent the very people and situations you're trying to protect yourself from. Here's what the illusion costs you. Every moment spent trying to control the uncontrollable is a moment stolen from your actual life. You're not present when you're mentally managing someone else's reaction. You're not resting when you're replaying every possible outcome. You're not free when you're performing for approval that may never come. The deepest irony is this: the more you chase control, the less safe you feel. Because no matter how much you manage, there's always another variable you can't account for. Another silence, another change of heart, another disappointment. And each one proves the illusion again. You are never holding the reins. Real safety doesn't come from controlling the world around you. It comes from knowing you can handle whatever the world throws at you, even when you don't like it, even when it hurts, even when it's unfair. That kind of safety can't be earned by predicting, preventing, or perfecting. It's built by trusting your own resilience, by proving to yourself, again and again, that you can feel the discomfort and still stay steady, that you can be disappointed and still be whole, that you can lose something important and still find your way forward. Letting go of the illusion doesn't mean you become passive or careless. It means you stop wasting energy fighting things you were never meant to fight. You stop treating uncertainty like an enemy and start treating it like part of being alive. You stop believing that your peace depends on everything going your way. When you release the need to control what you can't, something unexpected happens. Space opens up. Space to breathe. Space to feel without needing to fix. Space to choose how you respond instead of reacting from fear. Space to actually live instead of manage. You were never meant to carry the weight of the uncontrollable. You were meant to carry yourself through it with dignity, with softness toward your own heart, and with the quiet certainty that no matter what happens next, you will meet it. That certainty is the only control worth having, and it begins the moment you stop pretending you can control anything else. Chapter 6. The connection between control, rejection, and the desire to win. You chase control for one main reason: to protect yourself from the pain of rejection. Deep down, the fear isn't really about losing a specific person, opportunity, or outcome. The real terror is the moment when someone's actions, or lack of them, confirm a story you've carried for a long time. That you're not enough, that you're disposable, that you'll end up alone or unseen. So you try to win. Not in the healthy, playful sense of striving for something meaningful, but in the anxious, survival sense of proving you're worthy. You win by being the most understanding, the most accommodating, the most available, the most forgiving, the most impressive, the most low maintenance, the most chill person in the room. You win by never giving anyone a reason to leave. You win by making sure they have no complaints, no doubts, no excuses. You win by keeping the scoreboard tilted in your favor, so rejection never gets the chance to land. But here's what that strategy quietly does to you. It turns every interaction into a competition you can't afford to lose. Silence becomes evidence you're losing. A delayed reply becomes proof you're slipping. Someone choosing themselves over you becomes a declaration that you weren't worth choosing. Every moment that doesn't go exactly your way feels like defeat, and defeat feels like proof that the old fear was right all along. This is why letting go of control feels so dangerous. If you stop trying to win, if you stop managing, if you stop performing, if you just show up as you are, what's left to protect you from rejection? What stops the other person from walking away? What stops the confirmation of your deepest wound? The answer is nothing. And that's exactly why it's terrifying. But the same answer also holds the key to your freedom. When you stop needing to win every interaction, you stop treating rejection as a verdict on your value. You start to see it for what it actually is. Someone else's choice, someone else's capacity, someone else's timing, someone else's limitations, not a measurement of your worth. The desire to win keeps you tethered to outcomes you can't control. It keeps you scanning for signs that you're still in or out. It keeps you emotionally invested in people and situations long after they've shown you who they are. And it keeps rejection painful because you've made it personal. You've made it mean something about you instead of something about them. Real strength isn't winning every round. Real strength is realizing the game was never about winning in the first place. You don't need to prove your worth to avoid being rejected. You need to know your worth so clearly that rejection can't rewrite it. When that shift happens, control starts to lose its grip. You stop seeing every relationship as a test you have to pass. You stop seeing every silence as a failure you have to fix. You stop seeing every no as evidence you should have tried harder, been better, been more. Instead, you begin to ask different questions. Is this person capable of meeting me where I am? Do our values and needs actually align? Am I staying because it feels good, or because I'm afraid of what happens if I don't? Those questions come from a place that no longer needs to win. They come from a place that trusts you can survive disappointment. They come from a place that knows your peace doesn't depend on being chosen by everyone, only on choosing yourself consistently. Letting go of the need to win doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop caring at the expense of your dignity. It means you stop measuring your value by whether someone stays, responds, approves, or understands. It means you stop letting the fear of rejection dictate how much of yourself you're willing to shrink. The moment you stop playing to avoid losing, you stop losing pieces of yourself every time someone walks away. You stop abandoning your own needs to keep the scoreboard even. You stop turning love into a performance review. And slowly, the fear of rejection begins to shrink. Not because people stop rejecting you, they won't, but because rejection stops meaning what it used to mean. You're not here to win people's approval. You're here to live as yourself, fully and honestly, and let those who can meet you there stay, and those who can't go. That is not defeat. That is liberation. The less you need to win, the less control you need to feel safe, and the less control you need, the more peace you finally get to keep. Conclusion to the book. You've made it here, not just to the final page of this book, but to the edge of something far more important. The life where you no longer let every word, every silence, every disappointment, every glance, every delay, every memory decide how much peace you're allowed to feel. This journey didn't ask you to become someone else. It asked you to stop abandoning yourself in the name of being understood, accepted, or safe. It asked you to stop treating every trigger as truth, every thought as a command, every rejection as a verdict, every moment of uncertainty as proof that you're not enough. And you've begun to answer that call. You now know the root runs deep, but it's not permanent. You've seen how the mind builds prisons out of loops, how the illusion of control keeps you tethered to outcomes that were never yours to hold, how the desperate need to win quietly costs you pieces of your own dignity. You felt the weight of carrying what was never yours, the guilt that's been weaponized against you, the grief that comes when growth means leaving certain relationships behind. You've glimpsed the quiet power of choosing yourself, without apology, without over-explaining, without shrinking to fit someone else's comfort. None of this erases the fact that life will still hurt sometimes. People will still disappoint. Plans will still fall apart. Silence will still sting. But the difference now is that the hurt no longer owns you. It passes through. It teaches. It fades. And you remain steadier, softer toward your own heart, clearer about what deserves your energy and what does not. This is not the end of feeling. This is the beginning of feeling without being consumed. You're allowed to care deeply and still protect your peace. You're allowed to love fully and still walk away when love starts to cost you yourself. You're allowed to grieve what's lost and still trust that something truer is arriving. You're allowed to be human, flawed, sensitive, uncertain, and still hold yourself with unshakable worth. The freedom you've been reaching for isn't found in a perfect day, a perfect relationship, or a world that finally behaves. It's found in the small, repeated choice to return to yourself, to notice the loop and step out of it, to feel the fear and not obey it, to see the trigger and not hand it the keys to your peace. You've already started. Every time you pause before reacting, every time you let a thought pass without chasing it, every time you choose your boundaries over guilt, every time you walk away without needing to justify it, you are rewriting the old pattern. You are proving to yourself that you are safe with you. So go now. Not perfectly, not without occasional stumbles, but go lighter, go clearer, go kinder to the one person who will be with you through every single moment. You. The world will keep moving, loud and unpredictable as ever. But it no longer gets to decide the temperature of your inner home. You do. Thank you for trusting this journey. Your peace was always worth protecting. Now live like you believe it.